Flow. Penelope Bibb did not like curls. She woke up at 6 each morning to straighten hers out and tie them up. Then she dusted, wiped and hoovered anything which entered her eye line. After this, she took a 3-minute shower and put on a thin polo-necked jumper, a pleated skirt and a pair of lace-up shoes. Next, she had breakfast, a bowl of bran, 1 cracker and a glass of prune juice. She never touched cornflakes as they curled too much. She occasionally replaced the cracker with a slice of toast, but only if it was a very thin slice and not at all springy. Do we have to live with her? Danny sat on the case while his mum yanked the zip round the corners. "Yes," she said, and her voice strained with suitcase zip trouble. "I thought we could manage without Dad." The zip rounded the bend and sped home. Mum stood up. "We can't though. Not at the moment, at least. It's kind, you know, really kind of Auntie Penny to take us in." "I never answer to Penny," said Penelope Bibb when she opened her front door to let Danny and Mum in. "You, Daniel, will call me Aunt Penelope, and obviously Jessica, you simply omit the word aunt." "Obviously," said Mum, "seeing as I'm your sister." The first week was hell. The first fortnight, torture. In hell. It didn't help that they had moved during the summer holidays, so there wasn't even school to break up the tedium of Aunt Penelope's regime. Danny only called her Aunt Penelope to her face. When she wasn't around, he chose Bibby for her, and when Mum said she was sure he could do better than that, he started calling her Bibzilla. He couldn't believe she was related to him. He couldn't believe he wanted to go to school. But school was weeks away. In the meantime, there was a cool summer and the weight of Bibzilla's rules. There were TV rules. Never in the daytime and no more than 2 hours in the evening, and one of them had to be the news. There were meal rules. Breakfast, 7:30. Lunch, 12:30. Dinner, 6:30. Snacks must be minimal and always fruit. "And if a single nut crosses my threshold, I will know about it," Bibzilla intoned. And there were noise rules. "I find music distasteful," said Bibzilla. "It stirs up feelings for which I do not care. It is a bad thing." Cue non-stop Radio 4 and a total ban on Danny and Mum's whistling duets. Upstairs, Mum exploded like a laugh bomb. Then she saw Danny's face. "Oh, come here," she said. They sat on her bed. "It's not forever, Danny." She gave him a squeeze and he popped. "What's wrong with her? How come she's your sister?" Mum shrugged. "Sisters aren't the same," she said. "I think I remember her being fun when we were little. Life can hurt you sometimes, though." She paused and then said, "Can't it?" Danny nodded. "What hurt her?" Mum leaned back on her pillow. "I'm not exactly sure. She's a few years older, so I was a bit young to know all about her. She loved singing, though. I remember that." "What?" "Oh, yeah. And there was a man, and I think he loved singing too. And then he was gone. Maybe that was when she got all Zilla-ish," said Danny. "Uptight," said Mum. The weather perked up and they explored the village. "Didn't think I'd ever live in a village," said Danny. "Gee whiz," said Mum, "what a learning curve you're on." "Hey, what's that over there? In the grass, black and white. Wow! Is that what they call a cow?" They had a list from Bibzilla. Bran, crackers and prune juice. "Who the hell drinks prune juice?" Danny queried. I think Penny needs it to help her go, said Mum. Help her go where? To the loo. Ah! Said Danny. You know, big loo, I mean. Ah! Shut up! Must be because she's tense, said Mum. I don't want to know! Stop! The village shop was minute, but crammed full of stuff. Smells funny, said Danny. Country folk, said Mum. They bathe in manure, you know. Danny giggled and shoved her, and she knocked a sculpture of loo roll. Sorry, said Mum. The lady at the counter smiled. Her name was Patience Higgins. It said so on her badge. Staying with Miss Bibb, yes? She nodded, and Danny watched her. Her eyes were brown. No. Olive. No. Something. They had glitter in them. No. Silly. Yes, said Mum. I'm her sister. The lady smiled and rang their shopping through the till. Back home they put things away in the kitchen cupboard. Bibzilla was out. She was giving the local brownie pack a talk about germs. Funny name for it, said Danny. For what? Said Mum. Prune juice. What do you mean? It's called toon juice. Do what? Mum came and took the bottle from him. Well, it's definitely prune juice, she said. Look what it says. Guaranteed to get you flowing. Anyway, she'll soon let us know if we've got the wrong thing. But Bibzilla didn't. The next morning, she ate her bran and cracker and sipped her juice, just as she always did, in silence and with no show of feeling. It was the first really lovely day of the summer, and Mum said if they didn't go for a picnic, they'd be sorry. They couldn't persuade Aunt Penelope. Picnics are for outdoor people and animals, she said. I am neither. And besides, I believe I'm a little under the weather. I don't feel quite myself. They could see a grassy hill from Aunt Penelope's kitchen window and chose that for their picnic spot. They bought picnicky bits from the village shop. Today, Miss Higgins' eyes looked violet to Danny, and the glitter he was certain he'd seen in them the day before looked more like fireworks now. Enjoy yourselves, won't you? She whispered as they left. They lounged in the sunny grass and ate tuna sandwiches and Scotch eggs and jam tarts. Mum had a mini bottle of wine and Danny had a can of fizzy lemon. Heaven, said Mum. She rolled up her jeans and stretched out her legs. See? Country living has its perks. Danny smiled. He looked across at the slope opposite where most of the houses were, including Bibzilla's. It was a pretty view, he supposed. His gaze moved down to the little row of shops at the bottom. Someone's running, he murmured. He felt warm and lazy. Where? Mum was lying down now, ready to nap. Down there. Mum yawned. Where? She said again. She propped herself up on her elbows. What's that noise, Danny? Danny listened. It's the running person. They're singing. The dozy feeling lifted and he stood up. They're running this way. Huh? Mum was also looking more with it. She knelt and squinted straight ahead. A figure was... What was it doing? Galloping? Skipping? Up the hill. Towards them. Mum was on her feet now. That sounds like... She stopped, as though suddenly suspicious of her ears. That sounds like the sound of music, she said, and seemed to wait for someone to correct her. Danny didn't know. He couldn't because she was right. It was the sound of music, and it was being sung very loudly. Mum gasped. No way! She cried. Danny's mouth fell open. There was nothing else it could do, as his mind caught up with things and he realised what he was seeing. It's... I know, said Mum. Because it was. Galloping. No, skipping. No, Cavorting up the hill towards them was Aunt Penelope, hair loose and flying, arms flung out and flailing, and her voice, it rang out, notes ripped through the hot, sticky air like chimes from a massive bell. I long for the hills when my heart is lonely. She careered past them, apparently unaware that she was not alone. She's wearing a dress, breathed Mum, with no sleeves. Look at her feet, said Danny. Mum gasped again, for Aunt Penelope was shoeless. She was dancing barefoot through the grass, warbling like a crazy bird. After another couple of verses, she paused and seemed finally to see them. Jess! She cried. Danny! All right, Penelope, said Mum. Oh, it's too hot for Penelope. Bibzilla sank down on the grass beside them. Call me Pen. Penny. Penachita. Mum looked at Danny, but before any more could be said, Aunt Penelope was up again. I must sing, she crooned, and dance. Join me. Come on, join me. Mum and Danny gathered up their rubbish. Aunt Penelope didn't wait. She gambolled down the hill, this time letting rip with a spirited recital of I Could Have Danced All Night from My Fair Lady. She sang for the rest of the afternoon, sometimes skipping, sometimes swaying her hips and shimmying on the spot. When dinner time came, she pushed Mum back onto the sofa and said, Stay there, sis. I'll rustle up something spicy in the kitchen. Then she winked and cried, Olé! Mum and Danny didn't question her, nor did they discuss the matter later when they got ready for bed. There was really no need. From then on, once a week, they paid a visit to the village shop. They said nothing to Patience Higgins. They just looked at her, and she smiled back at them. Her eyes flashed from brown to olive to violet to pink, and she put 2 bottles of toon juice into their gaping bag. Words from the story. Number 1. Cavort, verb. In the story, galloping, no skipping, no cavorting up the hill towards them was Aunt Penelope. Meaning, move or bounce around in an excited way. Extra example. The elephant cavorted around the jungle, listening to its new MP3 player. Number 2, career, verb. In the story, she careered past them, apparently unaware that she was not alone. Meaning, move fast with not much control. Extra example. The old lady careered down the supermarket aisle, screaming like a bad ninja, determined to swipe the last tin of bargain sardines. 3. Gambol, verb. In story, she gambolled down the hill. Meaning, run around in a playful way. Extra example. The Prime Minister heard the sound of the ice cream van and gambolled out of Parliament and onto the grass to meet it. 4. Spirited, adjective. In story, she gambolled down the hill, this time letting rip with a spirited recital of I Could Have Danced All Night from My Fair Lady. Meaning, with energy, enthusiasm and gutsiness. Extra example. The snail gave a spirited karate kick against the gardener's spiteful fingers and carried on with its life.